What is so good about tallow or beef fat anyway? Well, let me just start off by saying there's differences in the quality of tallow that you can come across. I'm out here putting out hay to our herd of cows today. I just unrolled it for them. They're not super hungry because you can see so much green behind me. They are grazing on grass right now, nipping off spring grasses that are coming up. But this type of system that is utilizing forage like hay and dried grasses as well as fresh grasses, it produces the utmost in beef fat for you to use for all your needs. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I use tallow, and then I'm also going to show you I've recently made tallow balm that did not whip like I wanted it to, and I've searched all over the internet. I've searched on YouTube, comment sections of people that make tallow, and could not find the answer to my problem. So I've done my own research, and I'm going to show you how I fixed a batch because I used expensive essential oils in it. It is not something that I want to just say, oh well, and leave as is, or definitely not trash it, which there's no reason to because it's still good. But later on in this video, I'm going to show you how I fixed that problem, and I hope this will help lots of people in the future making tallow. But why would you use tallow, especially like I mentioned, I'm making tallow balm, which is something you put on your skin. A lot of people use it on their face, and I've even seen where board certified like plastic surgeons have recommended it. It has a lot of good properties. For one, it is rich in the vitamins A, D, E, and K, which your skin loves those vitamins already. It's similar in profile to your skin, so your skin accepts it really, really well. Those fat-soluble vitamins that it's full of help protect you against free radicals. It has essential fatty acids that help calm dry skin, things like eczema and things like that. It's also very low on the scale that, I'm not going to use the fancy name for it, but basically says, will it clog your pores or not? There's some oils that will. It's very low on the scale, so it's very unlikely to clog your pores. It's actually really good for acne and acne-prone skin. It provides a barrier so that your skin stays more moisturized, but not greasy. When you first put it on, you might be like, oh, this is gonna be greasy, but your skin just starts accepting it and absorbing it, and you're left with just soft, buttery feeling skin. Not to mention, it's really good as anti-aging, wrinkles, things like that. It's just really good all around. I make mine with what I render off of our own cows. I would say if you don't have cows, find a good source of grass-fed beef and request the fat. I know at our processor, I've never asked them to grind it. You can get your fat ground up. That makes the process easier, but it is definitely not essential, and I definitely would not pay extra for it. I'm going to walk you through kind of how I render it down. And then it's just super easy, and I have just refined that over time, and it's just gotten better and better and easier to do with great results. If you render it properly, you will not wind up smelling like a pot roast when you put it on your face at night. There's ways to do that, so stay tuned for that. I also use organic olive oil. There's just a little bit of that in it. The majority of in fact, for every 3.5 ounces of tallow you use 1 ounce of olive oil. So you can see it as a tiny amount, a small fraction. That helps you be able to whip it up and it to emulsify and those things. That's the problem I'm having. I'm going to show you later in the video and help you troubleshoot in case you have made tallow balm specifically that you're wanting to whip into like a body butter, because that makes it really, really nice to apply. I would recommend trying it. You can always leave it as a salve, and this is my last attempt to whip this batch, and then I am going to leave it as a salve. It still has all the same properties. It will still be great. It just won't be whipped like body butter. But that's where we are. One thing that kind of drives me crazy, and then we're going to move on up to the house and I'm going to show you how to do all this, is when people put videos or recipes on their blog just because they need to make a video. And I'm just gonna do full disclosure. There was a time or two early on when we made YouTube videos. We have been making videos for like 5 or 6 years now. That I was on a tight schedule. I put out 5 videos a week. I had to have a video. And I was like, oh, this recipe looks good. Let's make this for breakfast or supper or whatever. And then I filmed it also. So as a viewer, you're thinking this person, this is their tried and true recipe and they're an expert on it. And if you're seeing the video, it probably turned out well for them. But they haven't tried it enough to know if it turns out well consistently, or if it doesn't, what are those things that didn't, that you can help your viewer fix when they try it, to say, hey, if you do this, it will ensure that you don't have this result. And I think that's where we go wrong sometimes, is we find a recipe, myself included. This turned out perfectly the first time, and the second time it is just as high quality. In this one batch, y'all, I used Young Living frankincense because I wanted it to have things that I was comfortable with my family ingesting. So therefore, it would definitely be okay for them to put that on their body, on their face. And that was where I was going with that while ago, telling you what's in it. It is the rendered beef tallow. It is organic olive oil, and it is Young Living frankincense oil. That's what's in mine. You can use any scent that you want. There's scents that are essential oils that are better for your skin, that you could just use something that you enjoy smelling also. Just make sure those are skin safe. But that way, if it gets on your lips, it's really good to moisturize your lips. That could get in your mouth. You would be essentially ingesting it. So just make sure what you're putting in it, you're comfortable with ingesting. We should think that way about anything we buy at the store that we're putting, on our hair, makeup we're putting on, soaps we're using, because those can easily get in to your body. It can just happen. So I used Young Living essential oils. There's $350 worth of essential oils in this batch. This cannot fail. And like I said, it will still be super high quality. It's just gonna remain to be seen, have I fixed the problem and able to whip it or not. So let's go back to the house and let's get to work on that. Okay, I'm out here in the shop. You can hear the compressor running, so I'm not gonna stay in here, but I do wanna show you how our beef tallow comes. This is actually what I'm gonna show you is pork fat. I'm out of tallow, I've rendered it all down, but it's virtually the same deal. I've had them start putting it in smaller packages. This is about a 4.5 pound package. You can have them put even in 1 pound packages, but that's a lot of packages to open if you're gonna render very much at a time. This is a good size right here, about 4 to 5, 6 pounds, probably even up to like 8 pounds. The reason I say up to 8 pounds, I was gonna see how big this is. It doesn't have a tag, but I've rendered these before. You can see this is quite large. This is probably about a 16-pound slab of, this is actually pork fat. We're talking about tallow today, but again, don't have any tallow. It takes me 2 decently sized crock pots going at the same time to render this. So if you had like an 8-pound package, you could render that in 1 crock pot and not have to have 2 of them going. So we're gonna walk back to the house and I'm gonna show you about the balm that I made, but I can't make this video without giving you some quick instructions on how to render your tallow down, because that's the first step of this process. And so it's really easy. I've already done it. I'm not gonna be able to show you what it looks like, but if you'll just listen, it's super, super simple. You could see my fat and my beef is the same way. It's in kind of like slabs, pretty good sized sections. Like I said, you can ask your processor to grind that. That would make life a lot easier, but it's not hard even if they don't. So sometimes in the past I have chunked it up. Not the easiest thing to do for a couple of reasons. It gets slippery. Your knife gets slippery when you're working with fat. So you gotta be very careful. You gotta have a sharp knife because fat, like any kind of skin, anything like that will dull a knife pretty quickly and it becomes kind of hard work. I don't know how else to say it. Kind of using a lot of elbow grease, if you will. Now here is the secret to rendering it down and not smelling like a pot roast at the end. This is called the wet method, and I would highly, highly recommend it. There's a lot of people that are gonna tell you definitely do not use water because you have to get that water out of there. It is not hard. So this is how I do pork fat as well as tallow. Same way. I take my crock pot and I turn it on low. I put in 4 cups of water and about 2 tablespoons of salt and let that start warming. I have stopped even cutting up my fat unless it's just outrageous pieces because it's going to cook down. And then this next game changer step eliminates me from having to do that. So I put the large chunks in there. I let everything get good and warmed. It doesn't take a long time, but just go find yourself something to do for an hour or 2. Come back, it's all nice and warm and soft, but you've still got those big hunks in there. This is the base of my immersion blender, and this is the game changer. Use your immersion blender, put it in there, blend it. It's gonna look like a soupy mess. It will change how much you're able to render out of your fat dramatically. You will get so much more yield. I was throwing so much away, it was such a mess. Now with rendering it using the immersion blender, I hardly have any waste, just the little meat pieces and things that are in there. So you're gonna let that warm up, let that kind of simmer. You're gonna see it's gonna look kind of milky and soupy as it cooks a little while. I don't have an exact time, it's not that long. It's gonna start simmering and it's gonna get really clear looking. That's what you're looking for. You don't have to keep going because you don't want to overcook this and make it meaty smelling. So the first time you're just going to literally strain it. I use my milk bucket. You can, if you have a bowl or something, but you're going to strain it through just a colander. That's going to get the big chunks out. Okay, you're not done at that point. You need to find a place to let it cool off in that bowl, and then you probably need to put it in your fridge for the night. Let it get solid and hard. You're going to dump that out, and you're going to see the salt. If mine's like Himalayan salt, so it's kind of pink, so I can see the salt. The water is all going to be at the bottom. You're going to slice off anything that looks like discolored. You're going to notice. This is not hard, guys, I promise. Cut that off, throw it away. You're going to put that back in your crock pot with 4 more cups of water and 2 more tablespoons of salt, and you are going to render that again. It will melt down pretty quickly. Then this next time you're going to strain it through cheesecloth, or I just use a flour sack towel, a tea towel, something like that. Something that is going to finely strain it this next time, and it's going to get all the last pieces out. You can actually go ahead and do this again. Only do it twice and it works great. Same thing as last time. You're going to let it cool off, put it in the fridge, get hard, and you're going to cut the bottom off, the discolored part on the bottom, until all you're left with is pure looking rendered tallow or lard. You are definitely going to be able to see that you've cut far enough. You may not have to cut much off depending how well it strains the first time. That is going to purify it, and doing it at that low heat, you're going to wind up, and with the salt, with less of a beef smell, or pork if you're doing pork. So on to the next thing. So after I've done those steps for my tallow balm, then I have to, as you saw, as I told you, on that last step we had chilled it and cut off any impurities. Okay, so now I have a big chunk of chilled tallow. I'm going to gently melt that again because I need to get it in a liquid state. Don't go any further past just barely melted. Then you're going to add in my recipe, for every 3.5 ounces tallow, I'm adding 1 ounce of olive oil. Okay, and for every one of those increments, you can add about 25 drops of essential oil if it's for your face. You can add about 50-ish if it's for your body. I try to stick to around 25-ish because I do make it with face in mind, and then it can also just be used on the body as well. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to get those just mixed together. Okay, and then you're going to let them cool off. Ideally, they're going to cool off and firm up just sitting on your counter as they cool. You can stick it in the fridge. I have researched this to see if this is where I went wrong. Some people say that, you're not letting them really come together and cool off together. You're putting it in the fridge. That could have been why mine did what it did. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now what my tallow balm did and how we're going to try to fix it. So here's my little containers. The first time I whipped this up, it didn't unwhip the entire time I had it. I did have a person message me and say that theirs started to separate. Come to find out, it had got warmed up pretty good. You don't want to set this near a heat source. You want to store it in a cool, cooler place. Don't set it near your, curling iron or something like that. You know what I mean? But what mine had done in this batch is it started separating the next day. So I could see, basically, I'm pretty sure it was the olive oil down here and then the tallow on top. They did not stay mixed together. So I have taken, there's 50 of these. I've taken this and scraped it back out last night, all 50 of them. And I thought, well, I just didn't blend long enough, because after you mix those and the olive oil and the tallow and the essential oil and let it cool, then the next step in this recipe, and I'm going to put this recipe below if you want to try this, is to put it in a blender and whip it, and that's going to make whipped balm. You can take an immersion blender in a pot and do it that way. You can take a hand mixer. You're just going to whip it like if you've ever made homemade frosting. You want it to come out like that. It's going to go from a liquidy state. It's actually even going to change color. It's going to be yellow and it's going to change like to a white. You can see this looks white. It just didn't whip all the way up. It just changed in kind of like a thin pudding consistency, which was, you know, more than the liquid state it was in, but it never fluffed up. And so what I have determined is I have the ratio off somehow. I measured everything, but this is a huge batch. That's a danger you take when you make huge batches of things, when the recipe is calling for, you know, a half cup of something and you put 25 cups of something, you upscale it that much. So this is an extra thing of tallow I had. So what I'm going to do, because I'm not willing to give up on this yet, is I am going to mix this tallow in here and see if I can't get it thicker. The only problem with that is I may add some more essential oils because I'm going to be, you know, weakening this down some. The other thing is if you get too much tallow, you're going to have a firmer type cream. But in my situation, I would rather have it firmer than liquidy, and when people open it, it tries to pour out. Now, there is nothing wrong with this. Let me say that. There's nothing wrong with this tallow balm. This is tallow balm as it sits now. I'm trying to make whipped tallow balm. So if it doesn't work, it is still completely usable, just as high quality. It's just going to have a different consistency. People may even like it better. It's going to be more like a salve. Can be used for the same things. I'm just trying to do what I originally set out to do. I'm not willing to give up yet. So I'm going to add this in. I'm going to whip this back up some. And then I learned my lesson because we emptied 50 of these last night. And then my daughter has already emptied all 50 of them again today when I came around into the kitchen and it had separated again. I could have cried. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to whip this. And then I'm going to fill like maybe 5 of these jars. And then I will check this tomorrow. And if it worked, I will scoop the rest into the jars and we will have succeeded. If it didn't, we will go from there and maybe whip it some more, put it in there and put it directly in the fridge. Get it hardened like a salve so they harden, you know, right off the bat without separating. And then hopefully we can just use them as a salve. So that's where we are. I'm trying to troubleshoot this and put this video out there. If yours wound up too hard, if you're watching this video because you made this and yours wound up opposite of mine, yours wound up hard as a rock, like you're having to scrape it off, you've got your ratio mixed up and you need more of the oil, whether it's olive oil in my case or whatever you use that is liquid at room temperature, you need more of that. So I have the opposite thing. I need more of the thing that is solid at room temperature, which is the tallow. So you're just going to have to kind of troubleshoot for yourself because there is just not a lot of answers out there that I can find. So let's get going. I'm just going to do this. It's not going to be interesting to show. So I'll show you in the morning how this turns out. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the morning. All right, y'all. It has been a couple days, but I'm still experimenting with this tallow balm. I'm going to shoot you straight. If you're watching this video because you're trying to fix a batch of tallow balm, I don't want to say I just found the miracle and just add some tallow like I was telling you before we cut this off. It worked to some degree. It did stiffen it up a little bit where it whipped a little bit better, but I have left a jar sitting for a few days, and as you can see, it went ahead and separated. Okay, I took another batch of jars, and I'm going to get one of those and show you it. So I did a little experiment. You can see I've still got all my jars spread out back here. I'm not anywhere done with this, but I thought I'm going to take a day or two and experiment before I go any further and have to backtrack anymore. So I found what I'm going to do to fix this. And by fix this, this is just perfectly fine. You could take a little spoon and stir it, and it's still perfectly usable, perfectly same ingredients, everything, but it's just not the result I was looking for. But you can see this jar, it is more, it's more firm. It's still soft. I'm not going to dig in there because this is not a sample jar. I don't want to just mess this up. But it has formed into, you know, one homogenized thing, which is what I wanted. And how I fixed it and how I'm going to fix the rest is a secret ingredient. I'm going to melt what remaining tallow balm I have left, and I'm going to add 1 ounce per every one of these jars. Now, one of these jars contains 3.5 ounces of tallow and 1 ounce of olive oil. So I'm going to add another ounce of, this is beeswax. This is beeswax actually from our own personal hives here on the farm. And beeswax is excellent for your face. It will give you a protective barrier from the harsh weather or, you know, drying your skin out. But it will also let your skin breathe. It does not clog your pores. And it's a non-pore clogging substance. It's actually pretty amazing. And it's actually pretty amazing in balms for your face. So this is what I'm going to use to remedy this situation and firm this up a bit. So I'm going to melt my tallow balm back down. And this, you can see, has a little impurities. I have filtered this, but I'm going to go ahead and shave this part off. So this, it won't hurt anything. And in fact, it might be good for your skin, but I don't want this dark flecks in there. Shave that off, melt this back down with it, get it all nice and mixed up, and then I'm going to put it back in these jars, and I've already tested it. This is what it's going to come out like. Really excited I found a solution, but I just want to put this out there to tell you, you know, if you've had trouble, it seems to me like tallow balm, especially like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is tallow balm. It's just not whipped tallow balm. Just be prepared. It is not a foolproof process, and there's just a lot of factors. The weather, humidity, all the things can affect your moisture content in there. So you may just have to do a little experimenting yourself to fix whatever your result is. You may have to, like me, wind up adding something to kind of firm it up a bit. In my case, this is going to actually probably enhance it. It's going to be really great for your skin. Hope this helped you guys. I hope that, you know, you'll think about making some tallow balm or getting some from someone. I'm going to be shipping this. If you're interested, you can order this on our website, which there's a link below. I'll send it right to you, and you can have your own jar. You can make it whatever you desire, but it's really good for your skin, and I hope you'll give it a try one way or the other. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I love and appreciate you, and God bless.